This is 7 News.
Tonight, a big earthquake hits Kalgoorlie-Boulder. At least 20 historic buildings damaged. A young woman pulled from the rubble.
Thought she'd be dead.
From the studios of 7 Perth, Rick Arden and Susanna Carr.
Good evening. A big earthquake has hit Kalgoorlie-Boulder. It was the most powerful quake in the region's history. The magnitude 5 quake hit at 8:17 this morning. It was short and sharp but delivered a telling blow. Rick Arden joins us now from the streets of Boulder. Rick.
Good evening, Sue. The streets of central Boulder are closed and likely to stay that way for a week as emergency crews work out if the buildings are safe. The Golden Eagle Hotel behind me is one of the historic buildings that crumbled as they were shaken by the force of the quake. It lasted just moments. Some people are saying 10 to 15 seconds. This is the moment the earthquake hit, captured by security cameras. Inside an IGA supermarket in Boulder. Inside Woolworths nearby. The epicentre was just 2 kilometres away. They're used to rumblings from the mines around here, but this time the earth moved a lot. The quake measured 5 on the Richter scale. It was too much force for some of Boulder's historic buildings. As many as 20, built more than 100 years ago, suffered major structural damage. One of them, the Old Town Hall, built in 1908. The Golden Eagle Hotel, another. Owner Sue Antic dodged debris to rescue others and get out. So you're inside when the earthquake struck, looking at the damage. What happened?
Oh, it just happened so quick and all the walls were coming apart and moving and the building and the ceiling and bricks were falling out and smoke everywhere and just couldn't even see how to get out.
The quake hit just before 8:30 this morning. Any later and children might have been in this classroom at one of 4 schools to be badly shaken. The Boulder Primary School copped the worst of it, left with severe structural damage. A ceiling gave way, so did a veranda. The teacher was writing on the blackboard. What happened then?
He felt it under his feet, so as he was moving across to the door, that's when the ceiling fell in.
At this point there was only a couple of minor injuries reported, but thank God we're about 10 minutes later and we would have had a lot more because up near the school they normally congregate there under one of the verandas that did collapse. This is one of the many historic buildings in the centre of Boulder that have partially collapsed. You can see by the rubble in the main street how powerful the quake really was. 2 people were injured in the earthquake, but not badly. Both were taken to hospital and treated for minor injuries. A receptionist at a physiotherapy clinic was buried under rubble as she took cover under her desk. The clinic was in one of 4 streets hit hardest. Emergency crews think the damage here may be worse than they can see. They're finding it hard to get past rubble to work out if buildings are safe or if they'll have to be demolished. Some of the walls on the 2-storey buildings are blowing out. That's why we've locked off the street, so nobody's allowed in case we get a little bit of wind and they let go.
Rick, such a big quake, but luckily no one killed and no one seriously injured.
Yes, Sue, they were very lucky, but it was a close call for some people, including the 19-year-old woman I mentioned. She was caught under rubble and rescued by a workmate. Reese Whitby has more.
A young receptionist was lucky to survive this. The 19-year-old was at her desk at a physiotherapist in the heart of Boulder when the roof came down. Physiotherapist Gavin Corica came to her rescue.
The lighting went out, so we had, pitch black, opened the door and absolute chaos outside, rubble everywhere. And I was thinking, where's our receptionist? She's under all this rubble. I actually feared for her. I thought she'd be dead.
The teenager was treated for bruising in hospital.
I could not believe someone survived that, just the amount of destruction in that area. So I was very happy.
Today's big shake was the biggest quake to hit the goldfields. A tremor this big happens once a year in Australia, usually somewhere so remote no one notices.
We would have about 1 earthquake of this size every year, but most of these earthquakes happen in unpopulated parts of Australia.
It wasn't that much smaller than the quake that flattened parts of Newcastle, New South Wales in 1989. That one measured 5.6. Today's Goldfield shaker started with a loud bang and shook thousands from their morning routine.
We were sitting underneath the undercovered area at our school and the whole roof started shaking.
It was insane, man. The whole building was shaking, man.
I was driving and I'd stopped and I thought someone had actually hit me. It felt like a truck had hit me.
We were under the carport and the car was jumping and the carport was moving.
I was in the caravan and I thought somebody had run into it. So I went running out to give somebody a mouthful and there was nobody there.
It was a rude awakening for the people of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, but the timing was definitely a blessing. It was too early to catch the many people who work in the old commercial buildings that suffered most of the damage. The quake closed mines, including the giant super pit on the edge of town. The big worry now? Aftershocks.
In the few hours after the event, there have been about a dozen or so aftershocks. These have been of much lower magnitude.
It's almost 42 years since WA's biggest quake at Meckering in 1968. That one measured 6.9 and injured 20 people. In Kalgoorlie-Boulder, Rhys Whitby, 7 News.
This earthquake has struck some of WA's oldest buildings dating back to the early days of the goldfields. What's still to be determined is whether any of these old buildings, these historic buildings, will have to be demolished and how long the heart of Boulder will be shut down. And news just to hand, there are plans to reopen the Kalgoorlie super pit tonight for the evening shift. So that's at least some good news. Sue, back to you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Sue. Hello and thanks for joining us. Now we'll have those lotto numbers for you shortly. And we start with a quake in the goldfields. Both Kalgoorlie and Boulder face tough challenges. Joining us live from the scene is Kalgoorlie Mayor Ron Jurovich. Ron, you would have had a good look around by now. How much work lies ahead to rebuild the towns?
Good evening, Monica. Yes, there's quite a bit of work involved. I'd suggest that we've got some 80-odd buildings that have been damaged in some form or another, some more severe, obviously. So there's a lot of work to go ahead on.
And some of those buildings include your most historic and much loved ones. They've been damaged the most. How are people feeling about this?
Quite distraught in a lot of cases. Obviously, the owners from the hotel behind me are quite distraught in regards to this one. A very, very long history, the Golden Eagle Hotel. And other hotels in Boulder. Of course, they are amongst the oldest buildings that we have here, and the great built environment that we've got here has been destroyed to some level. But one concerns me mostly, of course, from the ratepayers' point of view, is the Boulder Town Hall. That has a western wall moved some time, which can cause us a lot of problems in that regard.
It is early days, Ron, but what you're thinking about those buildings, should they be restored to their original glory?
We would hope so, but we're practical in the goldfields. Obviously, if the damage is too great, then I would expect they will come down. We will, as a council, look at what is built in place, if it goes that way, and look to have the facade sort of rebuilt or some imitation of those rebuilt to keep the character of Burt Street.
Now, how much damage to council property has there been?
In the Boulder area, we've got the Boulder Town Hall, we've got the War Museum, the Boulder Railway Station, the Loop Line, the historical societies, we house them in the old power station in Boulder. They've all sustained damage of one form or another. So, yeah, it's going to be a considerable amount of money for the City Council. Locals were asked to turn off their power and water where possible. How else has this affected your services or other services in the area? Well, everything's back to normal now as far as water, electricity, Telstra, all those, the emergency plans that were put in place this morning worked very, very quickly and effectively, and we had all our services back online very, very quickly. So we've disconnected power from some buildings in Burt Street because of the imminent danger that they are in. But apart from that, I think that's only 5 buildings. Apart from that, everyone else has got power. Very, very quickly, Ron, we've heard that the super pit will reopen this evening. How much impact will the mine closures have on the community? Very minimal, because it has only been closed today, basically. And I know they've used some of the time for maintenance, but the main thing is safety, and that's what KCGM's about, is ensuring the workers are safe. So I can understand why they take the precaution, as we have as a City Council, in regards to our emergency management plan, which we instituted this morning and continue now for the next couple of days. Well, Ron, we're sure that the Goldfield spirit will shine through, and we'll leave it there for you now. Thanks very much for your time. Thank you, Monica.